Hey everybody, it's Jang here from UltimateRC.com with a review of a product from Redcat Racing. This is the Caldera SC-10E. It is a 1/10 scale, 4-wheel drive, brushless, ready to run, short course truck. I'm going to get one thing out of the way really quickly because everybody sees it. The thing looks weird. Its proportions are not the same as a standard modern 1/10 scale short course truck. The wheelbase is a little bit shorter, the body is much taller, and the tires are really tall. The wheels are normal though. So yeah, it looks funny, but I'm going to move past that. Beneath the disproportionate body shell, you'll find a more sensible chassis layout. Shaft driven, motor on one side, battery on the other. They include a battery with the ready-to-run set. It's a nickel metal hydride pack, 6-cell, 3800 milliamp hours. The motor is surprisingly small for a 4-wheel drive short course truck. It's one of those 380 size motors in a 540 sized can with ribs and fins on it. The KV rating, for what little that's worth, is 3750. Power is regulated by a Hobbywing Easy Run 45 amp ESC. The suspension setup on this truck is pretty nice. It has real big bore shocks and they are threaded on the outside, although they do have plastic bodies. It's easy to adjust your ride height, and you also have a few options for shock mounting both at the top and the bottom. The truck uses adjustable steel turnbuckles all the way around so you can adjust your camber and tow, and there are even a few different roll center options. The truck also rides on full ball bearings all the way around. Here you can see a little bit of the aluminum upper chassis. However, the lower chassis is all plastic. They use a multi-part interlocking design. It does have a little bit of flex to it, but it does feel pretty tough. It's kind of interesting when you look at the chassis. It looks like it was designed for many different vehicles. It even has saddle pack mounts in the back. The included radio is a basic 2.4 GHz unit. Feels pretty decent in the hand. It's one of those FlySky FSGT2 style ones. Most expenses were spared, but they did give you steering dual rate. A battery charger was included with the package. It's very basic, a wall charger. It has a half amp output, so you can expect it to take about 5 to 6 hours to fully charge the included battery. Now on that battery, on perfectly flat ground, this truck will top out at about 24 to 25 miles per hour. You can run a LiPo in it perfectly safely, and that'll bring it up to 29 to 30 miles per hour. The suspension is a little bit over dampened out of the box, and that makes the ride a little bit bumpy. The spring rate feels pretty good though, and it has just the right amount of body roll in turns. I had a little bit of trouble figuring out what I was feeling in the steering though. There was strange feedback where it felt it had too much follow through when I tried to turn, and it didn't like to straighten out. It's a little bit easier to see right here. After that turn, see, I had straightened out the wheel, but it just kept going. Seconds later, I took a little bit of a nose down landing, and now it felt like the left front tire was kind of stuck. The suspension was compressed and it wasn't steering right at all. Troubleshooting the issue back home, I found that all of the linkages were really stiff. They were actually binding inside of themselves. In the steering column, I could just loosen up the screws that attached the linkages, but that just allowed them to rotate around the screw freely on one axis. They needed to move on 2 axes. The problem wasn't limited to the steering either. The camber links were just as bad, if not worse, as were the lower eyelets on all 4 shocks. To remedy this manufacturing defect, I had no choice but to disassemble all 18 ball ends, take out the metal inserts, wet sand them down, refinish their surfaces with mother's polish, and then reassemble them. In a few particularly stubborn cases, I actually had to trim off a little bit of extra flange on the ball ends. It was a laborious process, but in the end I was rewarded with nice, free linkages all the way around. Finally, I was able to get in some full laps around the track. But it still didn't feel quite right quite yet. Steering was still a bit sluggish and inconsistent. And then this happened. That is a classic stripped servo. The internet said, yeah, these trucks come with crap servos, so I had to get an aftermarket replacement. I didn't want to spend a lot of money on this cheap truck, so I went to valuehobby.com and picked up a Power HD 1501. That's a $12 servo. It's probably 4 times as good as the stocker was. So here I was again, driving around the track again. But I still wasn't loving it. The stock tires had pretty poor traction and they were skirting all around everywhere. With their fairly round carcass shape and the very tall aspect ratio, the cheap rubber compound and all-terrain tread pattern were not the only problems. I just couldn't get a consistent drive out of the truck. The motor proved to be perfectly capable for this lightweight little vehicle. Plenty of punch and respectable top speed. It also had a ton of steering once I replaced that servo, but the tires were too bouncy and too slippery. It felt like a real chore to get this thing to go where I wanted, when I wanted. In a last-ditch effort to save face with the Caldera SC-10E, I swapped out the wheels and tires. Here it is running the J-Concepts choppers that are stolen from my two-wheel drive Slash. Now these are not race tires, they are basher tires, but they were so much better than the stockers, it wasn't even funny. Now I could finally drive the thing. Instead of being a pain, it was actually fun. Like I said, it's respectably quick and quite nimble. If only it came out of the box like this, I would probably have loved it. Too bad it didn't. And too bad by the time I got it working well, it was time to break it. Well, what do you know? After all that, there is something that this truck is really good at: taking abuse. Now, it did have one parts failure along the way when I was crashing it into walls and such. The screw that holds the knuckle on the bottom backed out and eventually stripped out. Also, the body was just completely trashed. This is not made of Lexan, it's PVC, and it really cracks apart easily. Shoe glue and drywall tape time. Oh yeah, and don't forget about the servo that stripped out during my first full pack of driving. So here's the deal. If you're an experienced hobbyist or you really like to get hands-on with mechanical things, you can make this truck work out quite well for you if you just want something cheap to play around with. This brushless four-wheel drive truck costs less than most brushed two-wheel drive trucks from big-name manufacturers, even after you swap the servo. But if you want to buy a ready-to-run truck and run it, well, this one's just not ready for you. Given that this is targeted towards bashers and folks more on the entry-level end of the hobby, I'm going to go ahead and call it a failure. You need to do too much too soon to get it to be drivable. And frankly, I think newbies deserve better. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So thanks for watching this review. I hope to have good information for you. Please be sure to hit the like button on the video bar if you liked this video and you want more reviews done like this, or hit the thumbs down button if you didn't like it or you don't want reviews done like this. Either way helps me out, and I appreciate your feedback very much. If you have any detailed questions or comments about this truck or anything RC related, be sure to post up a message in the friendly forums at ultimaterc.com, and I'll be talking to you again very soon. Bye for now.